Good morning, Niner fans. Happy Friday. Happy St. Patrick's Day. It's Friday, St. Patrick's Day. Got my green Talanoa Hufunga shirt. Got it from his site earlier in the year. His own. This is Talanoa Hufunga's merch. And I said, you know what? I haven't really worn this shirt all season because it's green, and it really hasn't been an opportunity. But here we go. It's St. Patrick's Day. I'm gonna wear my green Talanoa Hufunga shirt. How the hell is everybody doing? Free agency, the first week is pretty much in the books. I mean, there might be some signings today, but nothing big, nothing crazy. And now we have to kind of look at it and see what did the 49ers do? Are they better than the team that got them to the NFC Championship game? Let's reflect on it today. I think that's what we should do today. Kind of look and see what do we think about the 49ers overall first week of free agency. I'm going to let you guys hop in here. What is up, everybody? I'm going to drop a little 30-second little countdown, and we'll talk all about this week's free agency. It's been a fun week, I think so. Let me drop a little intro, and we'll get right into it. What is going on, Niner fans? Hit that like button. Yeah, what's up? What's up? What's up? We had a busy first week of free agency. You know, the 49ers hit you with the splash. They hit you with the losses of players. We had people upset. You know, we lose players, and then we bring in some depth. And then we saw the players signing yesterday, and it was like, oh shit, it's real, baby. It's about to get real. And I can't wait for September, man. I really can't wait until September comes. Now we can finally start thinking about the draft. I mean, obviously there'll probably be maybe some signings here and there between free agency and the draft. But, you know, you realize 49ers have a slew of draft picks, about 10, 11 draft picks. They have 11, they might trade or something. Then all the undrafted players. So by the time training camp comes, you know, they'll have their full roster that they're going to go into. So right now, if you really think about it, I think the 49ers overall, they're great. I think for free agency so far, it's been a beat. It could have been better. Obviously, it could have been worse. You know, they lost some players, but they lose players every year. What we talked about the other day is the 49ers do a good job of, okay, you lose some players, but they have younger players that they've drafted, that they've developed, that they've had on this team, practice squad, that can come in and be that next man up. You know, we have players like Drake Jackson that can step in this year, and hopefully he takes that next leap. You know, you had Charles Omenihu and Samson Ebicam. They left because they got paid big, and the 49ers were going to pay them. So you bring in a guy like Clelin Ferrell, who's a value signing. And with Chris Kasurik, they can probably get the same production out of Clelin Ferrell that they got out of those guys that left at a cheaper rate. And that's what the 49ers do. And Drake Jackson, a second round pick, he could probably get 5 to 6 sacks this year himself if he puts in the work and he stays healthy and he, you know, takes that leap in year 2. And that's what the 49ers do. So I think overall, knowing that they have some players already on their team that are ready to kind of fill the void, it's okay that they lost players. Because last year we lost Lake and Tomlinson, replaced them with Aaron Banks, and everybody was thinking Aaron Banks was going to be a bust. And man, oh man, were we wrong, right? So I think the 49ers have done a good job overall through the years of making sure they have players that can step in when the players they have that have been solid players leave. So I do think that the 49ers could have done a better job with addressing the offensive line. If you look at the NFC Championship game, you know, the Phillies defense crushed us through the line and, you know, unfortunately had the injuries. And I feel like that's what we had to do is really strengthen that line. Now, I think they took a little bit of a gamble of making Colton McKivitz, you know, the right tackle. I'm pretty sure, unless they go crazy in the draft, because again, we still can't fully grade what they've done this offseason until we see the draft. Because if they go crazy and they get like a big time premier right tackle that can come in and start day one, and then Colton McKivitz is your swing tackle, A plus, A fucking plus. But right now, if Colton McKivitz is your starting right tackle, that's a big mystery to me. It's a big question mark mystery, a big mystery. But if Colton McKivitz at least gives you what Mike McGlinchey did, then it's a wash. And you got him for cheaper. Mike McGlinchey went and got paid $87.5 million, ladies and gentlemen. Colton McKivitz did not get paid that much money. He's getting paid like $2 million a year to play right tackle, where McGlinchey was, right? And a lot of people, there was a lot of criticism on McGlinchey. Sometimes he was good, sometimes he was bad. Run block, he was good, but he wasn't consistent enough and didn't have that dog in him, is what people said, right? And if you're replacing a guy that up and down and you wanted better pass rush, pass blocking, then I guess it's a dub, because if you get a guy like Colton McKivitz can at least give you the same production and maybe less penalties, then you win that spot. You win right tackle. But it is a question mark, because the depth also, to me, doesn't feel like it's strong enough. Right now, it feels like it's not strong enough, because the NFC Championship game, if we had a stronger O-line, maybe we would have not had any issues there. But again, the 49ers scheme things up a little differently. They use the tight ends, they use the fullbacks to help with their blocking. So it's interesting to see, how everything's going to shake out with the offensive line. I do think they could have done a lot better in O-line. But then when you look at the other side of the thing is the D-line. The 49ers made the splash on the defensive line. And I think the 49ers always make sure their defense is the heart of their team, because you never know with their offense. Their offense has always been a question mark. Last year, it really took off when Brock Purdy and CMC came in, and it was like a whole nother ballgame. It was very dynamic, scoring points like we hadn't seen in a long time. And it was like, oh, damn, now the defense doesn't have to carry them. But traditionally, this defense has been the heart and soul of this team. And the D-line was traditionally what carries this team, right? In 2019, that ferocious D-line was pretty much what got them there. Front seven was just so stout, takes pressure off the back end. And 49ers knew that. And that interior D-line just wasn't what it was, and they made the splash. They got Javon Hargrave. To me, was an A+. Javon Hargrave, big move. It's going to help Bosa. He's a guy that's going to get double team on the inside. Nick Bosa is going to get double team on the outside. How are you going to block those two guys? You have Arik Armstead in there. And now it's going to help Drake Jackson, right, who we just mentioned, and Clelin Ferrell. So those two guys should be able to get a little bit more snaps than we maybe imagined earlier, and get a little bit more pressure and sacks than we maybe have thought before Javon Hargrave came in there. So Javon Hargrave is going to change that defense. He's a money player. He's a splash player, and it takes a strength away from the Eagles, the team that beat us. And the Eagles were dog walking us with that D-line. And I think the 49ers saw that. They said, okay, that defense was crushing us. Why don't we take a part of that defense and make it weaker? And Javon Hargrave was one of the best players of that Eagles defense. So we took a big-time player out of them, added it to the 49ers, and he's going to make things very, very good for us. Front seven is going to be great for the 49ers, and it's going to continue to be the strength of this team. So, again, and then it just helps everybody on this defensive line. You have a lot of good, talented players. You have Kevin Givens, who they brought back. I thought that was a solid re-signing. T.Y. McGill, those two were really nice. You got a guy like Kalia Davis who could come in and potentially have a little bit of an underrated impact for the team. I like where they're going with this defensive line. I do think that you need to get another edge rusher, like a veteran guy, a consistent guy that's going to get to the quarterback a little bit more, because we don't know if Drake Jackson's going to take that leap. We hope he takes that leap. We hope he does. We expect Clelin Ferrell to be a guy that can get 5 to 6 sacks, because that's what Chris Kasurik does. We're expecting it, but it's not a guarantee. So we do need one more edge rusher, I feel, going into the draft, and I'd feel a little bit more comfortable. I think that's the way I look at it. But overall, I think, man, that Javon Hargrave, again, was the splash of the offseason that we've been missing. It's like sometimes you're like, oh, these big guys, and they did it, and it was like, okay, Johnny boy, and it just set the tone. It set the tone. I thought it was an amazing signing for the 49ers. So I was happy that they got it. I feel like he's really happy that he's with the team. You could tell that he was giddy in his press conference. He just said, he asked them, what was the theme? What was your like signing with the Niners? He goes, normally it's teams just wanting to rebuild, going to pay you a lot of money. He goes, when I heard the 49ers call, immediately I said, yeah, sign me up, because it's not every day you get a winning team, a team that's been in the NFC Championship, a really championship caliber team, asking you to come to them with a lot of money. They paid him $84 million, They gave him 40 million guaranteed. That's a big contract. And a lot of teams were asking for his services. Cleveland Browns, but they weren't a championship team like the 49ers. So for a championship team to say, you know what, we still can get better. We can still improve this team. We have a good defense. We can make it better. They were the number one defense, and they made it better by getting an all-star player on their defensive line. So to me, that was a absolute smash. So defensive line, it's better. But you did lose some reserves. You lost Amenahu. You lost Ebicam, but they're replaceable. And that's the thing. The 49ers lost role players. I know a lot of people got upset with the 49ers not retaining a lot of players, and it's going to happen. Unfortunately, we can't sign everybody. There's a salary cap. They got to manage some things. We're going to have to re-sign Bosa here eventually to his extension. You're going to have to give Brandon Ayuk his fifth-year option. There's going to be some casualties, and every year you lose some players. But again, I feel like they did a good job of bringing in, T.Y. McGill and to Clelin Ferrell and Kevin Givens. Those are good depth pieces. We did lose some guys, but Ebicam and Amenahu, it's not the end of the world. They're going to do well wherever they went, but they got paid a lot of money. And 49ers, they know they can replace them with younger players that they're going to draft with Drake Jackson, like we mentioned. So it's not the end of the world that they lost their role players. Another guy they lost was Emmanuel Mosley, and I know a lot of people are upset about that one this week. He got paid $6 million for the Lions. If you look around the league, I think the Eagles paid Bradbury about $6 million. So in a way, you're looking at it, you're like, were the Niners cheap on that one? Were they cheap? Were they afraid that he's going to get hurt again? Because the thing with Emmanuel Mosley was it was a big injury. They've been burned by injuries throughout their history with cornerbacks over the years. And I think they might have got a little PTSD in not extending Emmanuel Mosley. Great player. They brought him up the system and an amazing talent. But unfortunately, he has had a lot of injuries over the year. The ACL tears that was the latest one. And it was a sad, heartbreaking injury. He was playing at such an elite level before the injury. But they have players like Diamondo Lenore who's going to save them money. And I think he's been taking a step in the right direction. They went and got Isaiah Oliver, who's a good nickel option. And I think he's going to come in and probably replace Jimmy Ward in that nickel spot, who had to take over last year. Gibson comes in, you retain Gibson, and now you don't have to have Jimmy Ward, who got paid $6.5 million a year. So it's kind of like they went and they said, okay, how can we save money but still bring in players that can help us out? I feel like Isaiah Oliver is going to be like a K'Wan Williams type guy, but also don't sleep on Sam Womack. So it's going to help give Sam Womack competition in that department at the nickel spot. So it was a good signing. Isaiah Oliver was a good signing, but the one thing that you think about is Isaiah Oliver had a torn ACL also a few years back. He came back from a surgically repaired ACL. So it does make you think a little bit of going, okay, if they didn't sign Emmanuel Mosley and they were afraid of the ACL, then why did they get Isaiah Oliver, who it's been a year removed? He had a full season playing after a torn ACL. Is he the same talent? Who knows if he's as good or is he, but he's healthy now and he played a full year on it and they saw what he could do playing after a torn ACL. So maybe they chose the cheaper guy that it's already proven he could come back after an injury, and they don't know if Mosley is going to be there. And again, $6 million, I think, was just out of their range. And that's what it tells you when you look at the contracts, because, it was a one-year deal, Oliver prove-it type guy, and the contract wasn't that bad, compared to relative to the market. And again, with what Mosley got. So it looks like they went the cheaper route. And again, it was a guy, Isaiah Oliver, that also tore his ACL. So I don't know. I don't know where the Niners' head was on that, but I love Emmanuel Mosley. But I think they maybe felt that just fresh off an injury, they didn't want to pay him the $6 million. So it is what it is. But I feel like Mosley is landing up in a good spot, and I think he's going to prove himself, and we'll see how that goes. I feel like the 49ers are really all in on Diamondo Lenore, and I think they like what they have with the, Mooney Ward and Lenore and the depth they have. The wild card right now is going to be Ambry Thomas. Can he step up? What's Ambry Thomas going to be like? He didn't really do much last year. He took a step back. I felt like he digressed, whereas Diamondo Lenore really progressed. It was a different situation with those two guys. So Ambry Thomas has a lot to prove this offseason. I feel like cornerback, I don't necessarily think we got worse. I think it's probably a wash. You lose Jimmy Ward, that's a big loss. A captain and a leader, that would definitely was a huge loss. I hate to see him go, the longest tenure Niner, but they weren't going to pay him that money. They wanted him to play nickel cornerback because they had Tashawn Gibson, a really good, solid veteran They bring him back, 1-year deal. They're probably going to draft a safety that they can mentor. You still got Talanoa Hufanga. You have Diamond Lenore and Mooney Ward. And essentially, it's the same secondary that got you to the NFC Championship after, Emmanuel Mosley tore his ACL, except Jimmy Ward has been replaced. That, to me, it's the way I looked at it. So they're gambling with losing Jimmy Ward, there, and seeing if Oliver or Womack can be a better nickel. So we'll see. We'll see. And I know Emmanuel Mosley. We all miss him, but if you really think about it, he didn't play most of the season, unfortunately, because of the injury. And Diamo Lenore was that guy, and he stepped up. So I feel like they trust the Lenore, and I think he's going to really step up this year and continue to get better. Slick says Ambry's going to get cut. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if he does. Honestly, at this point, he hasn't shown much, other than that rookie season where he makes that big interception. It's unfortunate, and he has to come into camp this offseason, guns blazing. Ambry Thomas has to come into camp and just go wild. He has to go crazy and really, really impress Kyle Shanahan and Steve Wilkes and this coaching staff, or he's out. He was a third-round pick. So it's not like they don't have expectations for him. They have expectations for him. But yeah, I mean, I'm excited for Diamond Lenore myself. I think this guy has, a lot of talent, and over the years, he's improved so far. Last year's playoff run was absolutely solid for Diamond Lenore. So we'll see. Steven Reynolds says, left defensive end, you got Drake Jackson, Clelin Ferrell, Calais Campbell. I would like a Calais Campbell. See, that's the money move. If you go Calais Campbell, my B will be a B+, A- if you get a Calais Campbell. That's what you need, a solid veteran edge rusher to help this team. Defensive tackle, you got Arik Armstead, Javon Kinlaw, and that's a guy that has a big question mark. You got Javon Hargrave, Kalia Davis, Kevin Givens, and then you have right defensive end Nick Bosa, Jordan Willis. I hope that the 49ers can bring back Jordan Willis as well. A solid veteran, a good special teamer. I like that guy. I think you could bring him back. Those are two good moves 49ers can make, Steven, is getting Calais Campbell and Jordan Willis. Again, it's moves like that, I feel like the 49ers still have left in them before the draft hits. So stay tuned. The next couple of weeks, we'll see what happens. Speaking of what they need to do in the draft is probably get a kicker, because right now the 49ers don't have a kicker. They don't have a kicker. So I don't know how to grade that right now, because I look at the free agent kickers, it doesn't really excite me. Robbie Gould's still a free agent. Maybe you bring him back. But I feel like at this point, it'd be awkward you bring him back. You know what I mean? It would be awkward if you bring him back. But, hey, at the end of the day, business is business. If he wanted to go, he tests the market, he doesn't get what he wants, then that's cool. You can come back, my boy. So I want them to draft a kicker. You know me, I like Jake Moody. I think you go and take the best kicker available. But it's weird. So for that right there, 49ers don't have a kicker. I say not having a kicker, that's a C. You got to have a kicker on your team. But when you look at the kickers available, I mean, they kind of don't look great to me. So I'm okay with not having a kicker right now, but at some point you got to make sure that that spot gets filled. But they're not going to go through a whole offseason and start the season without a kicker. So it'll get addressed. But, right now, definitely not a priority for the 49ers at this point. But, again, I hope they go and get Jake Moody, if they don't get anybody else in the next couple of weeks. So we'll see what else. So 49ers, they did bring back Jake Brendel this year. 4-year deal. I thought that was a really good move. I said that was about a B+. I like Brendel. He was a veteran in this league, bounced around, undrafted free agent, finally got a shot with the 49ers after Mack retired. And he's solidifying the center role. I think that's important. You need a guy that's going to give you stability. The 49ers have never had stability at center, and I think it was a good move for them. I think keeping Brendel was nice. He got a cheap contract. They didn't have to overpay for anybody, and I think the guy fits the system, good pass protector. And again, I feel like it was a win for him. He turned down less money to go to stay with the Niners. Jets offered him more, and he stayed with the Niners. And I think he, was loyal to the soil because they gave him an opportunity that not a lot of teams did. 30 years old, he gets his first big contract in the NFL. Happy for Brendel. I think that was a good move because, again, offensive line was a big priority for this team. If you really look at the O-line, you got Trent Williams, Aaron Banks, Jake Brendel, Spencer Burford, who should take a leap in year 2. That's a guy that they're really banking on. And then Colton McKivitz. We talked about Colton McKivitz. He's the wild card on this line. But behind those guys, the depth to me has not been fortified. You got Jalen Moore. You got a guy like Nick Sakel, Jason Poe. I like Jason Poe and Nick Sakel, but just because we have high hopes and they have expectations, we don't know if they're going to be good. They could come in one day and play, and we're like, holy God, that guy is terrible. So we don't know. We have high expectations for all our players, So right now, overall, in my books, what the 49ers have done with the O line, I think it's definitely, I don't think it got worse, but I don't think it got better. I think it's the same because you have Colton McKivitz is replacing Mike McGlinchey. Is that better? Is that worse? It's a wash to me. So I think right now you didn't get better. You didn't get worse. That's a C grade to me. It's an average job what they did. They didn't impress me with the offensive line. I give it a C, right there. I feel like they could have done a lot better. Maybe if they would have got a big time right tackle, Orlando Brown or something. But again, he wanted to play left tackle, so we couldn't get him. And then Taylor, he went to the Chiefs, big money. 49ers didn't want to spend that money. They wouldn't spend it on the D line. So they prioritized the D line over the O line. They're banking that McKivitz could be a cheaper version of Mike McGlinchey, and maybe they hit somebody in the draft. So I feel like they should have put a little bit of a bigger emphasis on the O line. But the right tackle market is very weird. It's a very weird one, and I don't think they wanted to overpay for someone on the market that they didn't necessarily like. So they went with McKivitz. So based on what was available on the market, I think the 49ers played it well. They just have to hit in the draft. That's about what I think is in their mind right now is they have to hit in the draft. They have to hit in the draft at the end of the day. So take a look at some of these comments. Steven says, what about Christopher Dunn from NC State if Moody isn't available? Yeah, he's probably the next best kicker in the draft. I like him, but I mean, it's like splitting hairs at that point. If you get the best kicker in the draft and the second best kicker, you have to really evaluate and see, do you think they're a fit for the team? If we're getting to that point, evaluating kickers is evaluating kickers. I like Moody. I think he's the best. I think you go with the best kicker if you're not going to take a free agent. But there's not a lot of good free agents left, I feel. So at that point, you just have to really feel that the guy is going to be the guy for you on your team. So appreciate you. Mimi says, I wanted to praise you on keeping your shows positive and funny. There's some real negativity in a few content creative shows. It's depressing, and I refuse to listen to them. Kudos to you. Appreciate, I try to keep my best. I mean, I could sit here and be negative. I have my takes. I have my, my frustrations, but there's no sense of being pissy and negative. It's just no sense. I mean, am I upset with some of the moves? Like, yeah, I'm upset we lost players. Like I said, Emmanuel Mosley, Jimmy Ward. I really looked up to those guys. I talked to those guys a lot, like especially Jimmy Ward. Me and him, we've been cool for many years. We talked a lot, and am I gonna feel upset? Yeah, as a fan, but it is what it is. It's a business. You got to wish them well. Players going to leave every year. I've seen it through many, many years. Even when I was younger, I remember watching Jerry Rice go to the Raiders. I was sitting there in my room and I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? Tear down my posters. Teenage Raj was so pissed. No more Jerry Rice in the Bay. But at the end of the day, you just got to realize as you get older, it's a business. I work just like everybody else works. And when you see people leave your company, you're like, you know what? Good for you. I'm happy for you. You're getting a good opportunity. When I was a manager, and a director at a clinic, I had employees, they leave and you couldn't take it personal. You're like, you know what? Good opportunity for you. I wish you the best. And that's it. It sucks when players leave, it is what it is. So what position should the Niners push in the draft? Good question, Edward. Like we've been talking about, right tackle, they have to address the offensive line, get the depth. I don't like the depth they have right now. There you go. I don't like the depth they have right now. I'm going to be honest with you. Cornerback, you need cornerback depth because we lost Emmanuel Mosley. Again, they have some depth right now at cornerback, but it's still scarce. I think you go cornerback depth in the draft. I think you got to go there. I still think they need to get another tight end. This is a really good tight end draft this year. Go get a tight end and an edge rusher. I still think I need some more edge rushers on this team. So please give me some edge rushers to help out and rotate and develop. And then you go get a kicker. You go get Jake Moody because we need a kicker. There you go. So let's see. We talked about Javon Hargrave. We talked about the 49ers, kind of replacing Amenahu and Ebikam with Clelin Ferrell. Those were good moves. Again, I feel those were pretty solid moves. We talked about Isaiah Oliver. Overall, I think the addition of Oliver was a B, but overall grade and assessment of secondary, I'd give it a B. I like Oliver. I think he's going to be a guy that could come in and play nickel. I love Jimmy Ward. Tough to lose him, but he wasn't a nickel. And, they get a guy that's a consistent nickel. Now you can compete with Sam Womack. So overall, I thought that was a good move. Losing Eman's tough, but he was coming off a torn ACL. And again, maybe the 49ers were not willing to pay him the $6 million after the torn ACL. And they were happy with Oliver. Although he did tear an ACL, they might have said, you know what, he's had a year to prove himself after the torn ACL. We know he can play nickel. So far, I think they still can. They could have done a little bit better with the secondary signings. I wasn't like overly hyped up. I was like, okay, it was not bad, but I still think they could have done better. I'm not saying Oliver's bad, but it's a B side. It was a B move. It was a nice quality, underrated, type of 49er move. A guy that could come in and you're like, oh, he's a solid player. A K'Wan Williams signing. It reminded me a lot of K'Wan Williams over the last few years when they signed him. So not horrible. And then again, we talked about the O-line. You lost Mike McGlinchey. You replace him with Colton McKivitz. You bring back Jake Brendel overall. To me, it was a wash, McKivitz and McGlinchey. If McKivitz hits and he's better than McGlinchey, that's an A, right? But it's a wash right now. We don't know if McKivitz is going to be better than McGlinchey. He can't be any worse, right? And then, you save a lot of money. So in a sense, that's a win. But he's a wild card. Jake Brendel, again, solid, stable center, but you don't have much depth behind him. So to me, it's a C on the O-line. It could have been better. We don't know if McKivitz is going to pan out. So that's the way I look at it. They didn't really do much skill position-wise. They didn't need to do much skill position-wise. You have great players. Depth-wise, of course, we lost some players. We talked about that. But they did bring in some key veteran depth players. They brought back Demetrius Flanagan-Fowles, special team ace, T.Y. McGill, and Kevin Givens. I thought those were really good depth moves. I love McGill. I love McGivens. Kevin Givens. And I like Demetrius Flanagan-Fowles in the sense of he's a good special teams player. He's a linebacker 3. He could come in. He can plug and play, spot start if there's an injury. He's going to push McCreary Ball and Oren Burks. One of those 3 guys is going to win the linebacker 3 spot. So at the end of the day, that was a good move to bring back those 3 guys. So I feel like the depth signings, I'd give it a B. I mean, I would have loved to have maybe one more of the guys we lost back, just for the sense of we don't have to replace too many people with younger guys or unknown commodities. But that's what the 49ers do best. So it's not that horrible. That's why I didn't do a lower grade than a B. So 49ers, they plug and play every year. Plug and play, plug and play, plug and play. Okay, Jaquaski Tart's out. Okay, here you go. Talanoa Hufanga, boom. He's an all-pro. Okay, this guy's gone. Okay, boom. We plug in with that guy. So Laken Tomlinson, he's gone. Okay, boom. Aaron Banks. So overall, I know the 49ers are going to be able to replace whoever they lost with. But we got to see them play first because we're going to be upset. We're going to be mad. Not everybody they replace with, though. They don't always 100% hit. Like, we didn't replace DJ Jones 100%. Javon Kinlaw, sorry, he didn't plug and play the way we thought. Javon Kinlaw did not replace DJ Jones, unfortunately. Javon Kinlaw did not replace DeForest Buckner, unfortunately. So they don't hit 100% of the time, but their track record's pretty good. I'd say about 70% of the time, which is pretty good in the NFL. I can take those odds any day of the week. So not a horrible situation to be in. And then lastly, I guess, is the quarterback. The 49ers quarterback situation. Obviously, we know Jimmy went to the Raiders officially today, finally went to the Raiders and signed his contract. You got 2 young quarterbacks that you're going to, have on the roster on a rookie quarterback deal. And then they finally got their mystery man, QB3, Sammy D. I liked it. I loved the move. It wasn't an A. The only A I gave this signing of the offseason was Javon Hargrave, A+. Clelin Ferrell, I still thought it was good. It was a B. Sam Darnold, also a B. I really loved Sam Darnold signing. I think it's a good move. QB3. He seems excited to play, football with Kyle Shanahan and Brian Griese. But it is Sam Darnold. He is a former number 3 pick. I think that's going to help Trey Lance mentally because he's been in this situation where he was a high pick, a lot of expectations. He busted, and then he was on the move to another team. So I think he'll be there to help, mentor these guys. He's 25. He still has talent. I think he can come in an emergency situation and play. I like the move overall. I think that's a good quarterback room. It's $13 million for 3 quarterbacks. You got 3 quarterbacks for $13 million. It's a pretty damn deal. Trey Lance is the number 3 pick. Could be good. We'll see what he can do. We know what Brock Purdy could do if he's healthy and he comes back 100%. We got a guy that can come in and save the season. Trey Lance is going to give a golden opportunity. It's his job if, he takes it and he wows everybody. Then you got Brock Purdy sitting there waiting until there's a moment either Trey fails or he gets hurt. And then Sam Darnold just going to sit there and wait for his opportunity. And if it comes, he'll do great with this team because this is the best team he's ever been on. It's the best weapons he's ever had, the best coach he's ever had. And Brian Griese, man, he gave a lot of props to Griese, and that guy does need his props because Griese last year, what he did with three very different quarterbacks, was fantastic, man. He's our best quarterback coach we've had, man. Guy's a stud of a coach. I loved him, man. He knows the system. He played with Kyle's dad, Mike, back in Denver. He knows the system. And he really coached these quarterbacks up a lot better than Rich Scrillangelo. So Bay Area baller. My man says, I'm relatively new sub, but I see you grinding and enjoy your work. I appreciate you, Bay Area baller. I really do. I really do. I've been working hard. I wish I was on YouTube years ago because YouTube content creators are oversaturated. And I've been doing this for years. I've been doing just this, talking in front of a camera, doing the YouTube game, but on Instagram. But on Instagram, it's a lot different. And I wish I would have done this on YouTube so I could save my videos and talk to you guys. But I truly appreciate the support, man. Thanks for all the new subs. We gained a pretty good amount of new subs over the last week or so during free agency, and I do want to say I appreciate you guys. I appreciate all the followers, all the subscribers through all the years on all my platforms. So thank you. It means a lot. So Mimi says, Jimmy's finally at the podium at noon. I'm so anticipating. I can't wait to watch that. Raider fans have been ruthless to him. I feel bad for the guy. I honestly feel bad for Jimmy. He's leaving one toxic situation and getting into another toxic situation. Like, it's sad. Wish him the best. John says, in my opinion, Darnold isn't planning on hanging out as QB3. He wants that QB1, and he's going to try to win it. And I hope he blows it immensely. You know what, John? That's a great comment because he is going to come in. He is going to compete. He knows. He's been in the NFL for several years now. All right? He's 25, but he's been a number 1 first-round pick, a number 3 pick in the NFL draft. He's been a starter. He knows what it takes. He's going to come in, and he's going to put the pressure on Trey Lance. And I think Kyle wants that. I think he wants to push Trey to the absolute highest level he can get. And Sam Darnold was not a bad option to come in. You can say, hey, look, Sam, you might have a chance to start right now. Go in training camp and give us everything. If Trey Lance can't beat you out in training camp, you'll start until Brock Purdy's back. That is 100% true. He's not going to hang out for QB3. The guy's hungry. He's been bounced around the league, and this is his best opportunity to actually be a relevant quarterback, a really good quarterback in the NFL, right? With this skill set, with Brandon Ayuk, happy birthday, by the way, Deebo Samuel, George Kittle, CMC. This is the best offense this man's ever seen. I'm telling you. And now, with Brian Griese and Kyle Shanahan, he's going to put his foot down on pedal on the metal in training camp, and it's going to bring out the absolute best. It's going to be bring out the absolute best in Trey Lance. Ladies and gentlemen, watch out. Trey Lance versus Sam Darnold is going to be a movie. I'm saying that right now. Like, you think it's funny. Just wait until the training camp when all your favorite content creators are sitting there going, Sam Darnold versus Trey Lance is a very good competition. I'm calling it right now before it happened. Everybody, you're going to see all the people on YouTube. Oh, Sam Darnold looks great in camp today. Trey Lance has some competition. You're going to see it. And Trey's going to be dogging people. He's going to be pulling out everything. And I'm pulling for Trey. But this was a good signing because it's going to push Trey Lance. So it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun. I absolutely love Sam Darnold signing. Cheap. Good veteran. So, but it'll bring out the best in Trey. John says it'll bring out the best in Trey, the best in Sam, and the worst in the fan base. It always does, my boy. It always brings out the worst in the fan base. They love it. So overall, though, I'd say the 49ers did a beat. So that brings us to the question that we should answer. Did the 49ers get worse? Did the 49ers get better? Or are they the same? They didn't get better. They didn't get better. I think parts of their team got better. The defensive line, I think this move puts them over the top on the defensive line. It's going to help Bosa. But I don't think you can say that they're going to be better until the draft comes, till we figure out what that 53-man roster looks like and kind of start playing it out. They didn't get necessarily worse, although you can make an argument. A lot of people will say they look worse. They don't have a kicker, but they'll figure that out, right? That's what they'll figure out. You still got the same three quarterbacks. Well, you got the same two quarterbacks. They're hurt, and then you got a good backup quarterback now, an emergency quarterback. Offensive line, it's a wash. It didn't get worse. It's the same. To me, it's the same. You didn't get worse in the offensive line. You just didn't help your depth. It's the same offensive line. Cornerbacks, you need more depth. Emmanuel Mosley didn't play last year really much of the season, after he got injured, early in the season. He was amazing, having a good season, but Lenore stepped in, and I think they believe in Lenore. So overall, I don't think you got any better on this team. I think a lot of the team kind of stayed the same. I don't necessarily think you got worse. I think they pretty much are about the same. I think they're about the same as where they were at the NFC Championship. So you didn't get worse. I don't think you got better. I think it's about the same. Will Javon help Arik Armstead have a comeback? I think he's going to help Arik Armstead in many ways. And it wasn't that Armstead had a bad year last year. He was hurt. Armstead, honestly, this was the first year in many years that he got hurt. And, his productivity was down. And, it took him time to kind of get into his form. I think Javon Hargrave is going to have a huge help for Arik Armstead. This guy's going to take pressure off of everybody on that D-line. He's going to get double teams. This guy got 11 sacks from the interior of the defensive line, a 3 technique. This guy was getting pressure up the gut. He was throwing centers around like a rag doll. He's going to get double teams. So, yes, Arik Armstead's going to slip through. He's going to be able to get pressures. Maybe he can turn those pressures into sacks. You can slide Arik, a little bit outside at times on certain downs. He's going to be a stout run blocker, as he always is. Armstead's a good run defender, and that's going to make that even better for him. But 100%, this is going to make Armstead's life so much easier. So, yes, to answer that question, good question. It's going to make Armstead a lot better this year. He just has to stay healthy. I think, honestly, that's what the problem was last year. He had the plantar fasciitis, and if you know what plantar fasciitis is, it's a very nagging injury. And then he had a fracture, like a small fracture in the bone of his foot. So it's tough. He couldn't even bear weight for a couple weeks. So he had a really nagging injury. But I think that Armstead with Javon Hargrave is going to be a phenomenal duo. If you remember the year before, Arik Armstead and DJ Jones, I mean, come on, man. That was a nasty duo on the inside. When they moved Armstead back inside and they paired him with DJ Jones, that was disgusting. And I think that's exactly what we're going to see with Armstead and Javon Hargrave. It's just a fantastic duo. If you remember in 2019, Armstead had 10 sacks, I think, from that inside spot when they had DeForest Buckner and Armstead. And that's exactly what I think can happen with Armstead again. I think he can get a high sack total because he'll have a lot of one-on-one matchups. He's going to get a lot of pressures. He gets pressures. He just never was able to finish the job. So now, if you're doubling up Javon Hargrave, Armstead's going to be wide open down the middle. He's going to be hitting quarterbacks. And if you got to guard him, I mean, Nick Bosa's ready to eat. He had 18.5 sacks with plumbers and technicians, at times playing, So it's going to be nasty. It's going to be scary hours. Well, so Sam Darnold has to be an A+ for a third-string quarterback. I mean, if you think about it in the grand scheme of he's a third-string quarterback, yeah, it's an A+. I mean, you can argue that. I just think overall it's a B. I don't want to give it an A+. I don't want to give it an A+ because we don't necessarily know how this quarterback room is going to shake out. We got to see Brock Purdy get healthy. We got to see Trey Lance come in and kill it in camp and see what happens. But you never know what's going to happen with the 49ers quarterback room. I think it was a solid B, though. I'm not going to give it an A, but in terms of being a quarterback 3, it's an absolute win for the 49ers. But do I say it's an A+? No, just because you never know what can happen with the 49ers in quarterback rooms. I definitely think that Sam Darnold is an upgrade over Josh Johnson, obviously. But you got to think about it last year. You had Trey Lance, you had Brock Purdy, and Jimmy Garoppolo. Sam Darnold and Jimmy Garoppolo, is Sam better than Jimmy? Is Sam better than Brock Purdy? Because Brock Purdy was technically our quarterback 3 last year. So I look at it in that sense. It's about the same, really, in terms of the 3 quarterbacks, in terms of talent-wise, Jimmy knew the system. He came in, he won games. It's about Brian Greasy. Brian Greasy really made Jimmy look a lot better than he ever did in the 49ers uniform, other than that first 5 games he came in. Brian Greasy is the man. That's why Sam Darnold, that's why I said Sam was so excited to play with Greasy. And I think that Greasy's going to get a lot out of him. But in terms of just being, if we're just grading that we have a Sam Darnold as QB3, yeah, that's an absolute money move. But what is going to happen to the 49ers quarterback room? I don't know. So, did you see Sam Darnold's face in his presser when the guy called him a quarter? Dude, he was smiling. He was smiling for a while when they were asking him questions, and you could tell he was happy about Greasy and playing for Kyle. He was like a wide-eyed smile. And then when they asked him that, he was like, he goes, we'll just see how the chips fall. He says, we'll just see how the chips. He was like, at the end of the day, we just want to win games. I think he got a little offended. He doesn't want to be a QB3. Just like John said earlier, he's not coming in to be a QB3. He's coming in to compete. And I respect that out of him. But Trey Lance is going to be your starting quarterback if he comes out and leaves no crumbs, right? That was a funny question. That was good. He was like, the fuck did you just... He said QB3? In his head, internally, he was probably like, what did you just say? What did you just say? Best quarterback room once again, just need an O-line. Yeah, that's why I said O-line to me was a C. It's a wash. You didn't improve it. You didn't make it better. That's what I feel like this team... I feel like that's what the theme of this offseason was. It was you didn't improve, but you didn't make it worse. Again, Javon Hargrave was an A. I'm not saying we didn't improve on the D-line. In certain aspects, we improved. But overall, if you got to grade it as an overall, everything, every piece together. You lost coaches, too. You got to remember you lost coaches. But I feel like they're going to do well. I believe in the coaches. Kyle Shanahan's a coach factory. Niners all over the league. We talked about that. You have Niners on every... Niners are going wild all over the league, ladies and gentlemen. They're all over the place. But we'll see how these replacements, the next man up, we'll see how they do. We all have high expectations for Drake Jackson. We're hyping him up. Well, he's got to perform before we sit there and say he's an A. He's got to go out there and perform. We're all hyped up on Sam Womack and Isaiah Oliver to be the nickel, but they got to come in and perform. So your team didn't get better. Your team didn't get worse. Your team stayed about the same overall. So I give the 49ers props for making the splash, but they still have work to be done. You need a kicker. You need an edge rusher. You need a right tackle, or at least a swing tackle. Or you can make Colton McKivitz a swing tackle. You need a tight end. So, Alberto, this is a good call. He says, any quarterback that comes to the NFL is not planning to play QB2 or QB3. Yeah, I guess you could say that. I guess you could say they all want to compete to be... Every quarterback probably thinks they're starting quarterback in the NFL. That's your mindset. You gotta think that you're the dog, that you're the best of the best. So F your QB3. F your QB3. He's gonna take that personally. Mimi. When he goes to training camp, boy, I bet you Sam Darnold, he's gonna have backwards hat. He's gonna come in. He's gonna get the business. He's gonna be flinging that to Brandon Knight, QB3. But then you're gonna have Trey just looking smoothie. I'm excited for all of them. At the end of the day, I just want this team to win the Super Bowl. I don't care if Sam Darnold is your quarterback, if Trey Lance is your quarterback. Whoever wins the Super Bowl and is our quarterback, I'll be happy. I don't care. Just win a Super Bowl. But the 49ers are making sure their defense is their key. So we'll see. I agree, though, Sahaj. Why don't we get better offensive line now? They like to take chance on guys that we don't expect to be good. last year, again, I guess you can't question it because every time we do, we get proven wrong, for the most part. Again, Aaron Banks, Jake Brendel, I will tell you this last year. I remember going, I can't believe Jake Brendel is starting center. I remember sitting here going, oh my God, Jake Brendel. He's our starting center. And I just was like, I remember when they dropped the graphic of 53-man roster, and I'm going, Jake Brendel is a start. And he was good, and now I'm happy we got Jake Brendel. So at the end of the day, the 49ers offensive line, we always over criticize it. We over criticize it. And we're just like, oh God, man. And we're pleasantly surprised at the end of the year. So to me, the Mike McGlinchey, Colton McKivitz is the big wild card. If Colton McKivitz is better than Mike McGlinchey, that is the absolute dub of the offseason because he's so much cheaper. Mike McGlinchey is getting $50 million guaranteed, and Colton McKivitz's contract is a lot cheaper. A lot cheaper. What was the actual numbers? I forgot what it was. Off the top of my head, let me go look at what his full contract was. Colton McKivitz. What was it? Let me see. What was it? Full contract was, bear with me here. Full contract. Colton McKivitz. Can't remember how much he got paid. I know I posted it somewhere. There we go. Where's it at? Where's the damn numbers at? We posted so much this week, I can't even find it. Oh, here we go. Colton McKivitz. He's getting paid $2.9 per year, basically. He's getting paid $2.9 million a year. Okay? Mike McGlinchey got $87.5 million over 5 years. You do the math. $2.9 million. So if Colton McKivitz is better than Mike McGlinchey, it's the absolute win of the offseason. That's what the 49ers are thinking. They're hoping that Colton McKivitz is better than Mike McGlinchey. And if he is, that is the absolute W of the offseason. And your grade right now that I'm giving them will be an A. So you can't truly grade this offseason until we see how it all plays out. But right now I give it a B because you can't grade it. And I just did. Oh, man. Yeah, after losing 4 quarterbacks in a season, a front office better handle business on the O-line. I hope that in the playoffs, or not the playoffs, in the draft season, I hope the 49ers in the draft really take a home run hit on the right tackle spot, guys. It's not that I hate Colton McKivitz. I just want him to be the swing tackle because if you can get a guy that could be like a top right tackle in the league, and Colton McKivitz is your swing tackle, oh wow, then your depth is crazy. Because they did lose a guy, Dan Brunskill, and I felt that was a huge loss for the 49ers. I'm not saying he's like an elite player. I think the Dan Brunskill loss was pretty tough because that guy can be plugged and played everywhere. He's everything the 49ers envision in a football player. A guy that's so versatile, he'll play everything, just like Jimmy Ward. Like, you can play him at center, you can play him at guard, you can play him at tackle. I love Dan Brunskill for that, but he wanted to be a starter somewhere, and I understand that, and I get it, and he went to the Titans. Ran Carthon and said, hey, you can actually start for my team instead of being a backup reserve rotational guy for the 49ers. And I think it was a good opportunity for Brunskill because he is a quality lineman. And we say that about a lot of our players. The 49ers reserves or their backup players or their rotational players, they could be starters. And they proved it this offseason. Every time we say, oh, man, the 49ers backups are so good, they could be starters. Well, they were this offseason. They cashed in and they're starters now. So Dan Brunskill, I'm happy for the guy, but that's a good rotational player. So we have to be able to fill those type of roles, a guy that could come in and do it all. But I'm pretty sure the 49ers can do that in the draft. They got a lot of picks. So overall, I give this team a B in the offseason so far because I know we lost players, but the 49ers do a good job of replacing people either through the draft, undrafted players. The UDFAs are always good. And they have a bunch of young players on the team already from the last few years that are ready to take that leap. So I trust this front office. I know we could have done better on O-line, but I still think they have a few tricks up their sleeve in the draft. Maybe they'll trade and stuff like that. And overall, this is still a good team in the NFC. You got to realize not every team was able to keep all their players. The Eagles lost a handful of players. The Rams are in they're gone. They're gone. Although they will have a lot of cap space next year, the Rams are rebuilding. A lot of teams in the NFC are going to be bad this season that may have been good in the past. The Packers, they lost Aaron Rodgers. Well, they're losing Aaron Rodgers. We don't know what the hell is Jordan Love's gonna look like. Jordan Love, ladies and gentlemen, the Jordan Love era is taking over Green Bay. Are you kidding me? No more Aaron Rodgers. A lot of teams got weaker. So that's what I think people need to realize. Like, yes, the 49ers didn't get better. Again, I don't think they got worse. They're about the same. But there's a lot of teams that got worse this offseason. A lot of teams got absolutely worse this offseason. The 49ers didn't. Kevin says we need to replace Robbie Gold. Yeah, I agree. Jason, you never get the note. I don't understand why the notification. A lot of people, YouTube. I'm gonna tell you this right now. YouTube been hating on you, boys. I used to have when I first started the channel was popping. We grew fast, but I had to delete a lot of content. So when I did that, I think my page got thrown under the algorithm, and they don't always put the notifications. People tell me that. I have a lot of issues with YouTube. I was thinking about restarting my YouTube, honestly, because I still haven't even got part of the YouTube partner program. But we'll see. A lot of nonsense with YouTube, but we keep grinding away. It is what it is. I do appreciate 10K subs, so I need to catch up on sleep. I think I slept the most last night of the whole week so far. I finally crashed like 11 o'clock p.m. That was the earliest for me. I went to sleep all week. I went to bed at 11, woke up at 7. It's a good 8 hours. That's the most I've slept all week. I only get some notifications. YouTube be killing me, man. I don't know. It is what it is. We'll keep grinding, though. I appreciate those that support. But, yeah, overall, again, I think we didn't get worse. I don't think we got better. We could have done better in certain spots, but Javon Hargrave was the Javon Hargrave move was such a win that it makes our offseason really good. It made it so great because this guy, again, you take a strength away from the Eagles, you make the strength of your defense even better, and you prevent him from going to teams that you're going to compete against. The Rams, he doesn't get to go to the Cowboys. He doesn't get to go to any of these good teams in your conference, the NFC. So the 49ers made sure that they got one of the better players on free agency on their team. When you get a star player in free agency on your team, that is always, always positive. So I appreciate you, man. But, yeah, anyways, you guys have a good rest of your day. We're nearing an hour here on our show today. So Friday, a little bit of a recap here today, just in case you're just hopping in. I appreciate you guys. Again, we recapped free agency. We graded them. I feel like the 49ers didn't get worse. They didn't get better. They probably stayed about the same overall. I give them about a B. The Javon Hargrave move was an absolute A+. Everything else wasn't, overly crazy, but I think they were good moves in terms of depth. They didn't really get starters, essentially. They got role players. They got depth players, but they didn't really lose starters this offseason. They lost role players. I mean, you can split hairs and say Jimmy Ward's a starter and Emmanuel Mosley is a starter, but again, they have guys like Sam Womack and now Isaiah Oliver that can compete. Emmanuel Mosley was really good, but often injured, and I think they're really hyped up on Deommodore Lenoir, who started last year. So it's kind of a wash at that point, but you do lose depth at that position. So overall, I think that it evens out at the end. Offensive line, I don't think it got better, which I wish they would have gotten better. That is the one area I wish we would have improved on, is the offensive line a little bit more, but they still have the draft. 49ers were able to restructure some contracts, Fred Warner and Charvarius Ward this offseason. I think those were big hits that helped them, bring some players in, and it's going to allow them to do some more things in the future, like draft their players and potentially extend Nick Bosa. I still think they got one more restructure left in them, maybe Christian McCaffrey, but we'll see how that goes. At the end of the day, overall, it's an exciting time to be a 49er fan. This was a good week. It was fun. It was cool to see all the news and see who the 49ers get. It gets you excited about the next season. I know I'm excited. I can't wait to see Javon Hargrave rocking that red and gold. But we'll see what happens next. Stay tuned. We'll be live a little later. I love y'all. Y'all have a good day. Bang, bang. Niner gang.